So the ATF's attempt to dismiss the state of Texas law, which deregulates made in Texas suppressors, has just failed. So let's talk about this. But real quick before you jump into this video, if you think the ATF needs to be abolished and the NFA needs to be repealed, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Sonoran Desert Institute. SDI is an accredited online college that helps students learn the skills and techniques they'll need to be successful in the firearms industry. So if you enjoy gun repair, ballistics, and learning about firearms, SDI might be a good option for you. To find out more about SDI, you can visit the website linked down below. And thank you again, SDI, for sponsoring this video. So like I said in the intro, the state of Texas is suing the ATF to prevent the ATF from being able to regulate firearm suppressors that are made in Texas and sold in Texas. In response to the lawsuit filed by the state of Texas, the ATF filed a motion to dismiss in an effort to throw out the case and end this whole made in Texas suppressor issue. Well, we just received an order from the court in this case in regards to the ATF's motion to dismiss and their attempts to get rid of this case. Now, this lawsuit arises out of the Texas House Bill 957, which passed last year. And if you're not aware, HB 957 aimed to exempt from federal regulation all suppressors that are made in Texas and remain in Texas. HB 957 exempted silencers which are manufactured in Texas and which remain in Texas from federal laws and regulations, including the federal registration requirements under the NFA. This bill that passed requires that these made in Texas suppressors be stamped made in Texas, and it also bars all local agencies and law enforcement officers from enforcing inconsistent federal laws against Texas residents who purchase and are in possession of these made in Texas suppressors. The claim behind this law and bill when it passed is that since these items are made and sold in the state, they do not fall under interstate commerce, and therefore they fall outside the purview of federal regulation by the ATF. Currently, federal law regulates suppressors, making it illegal to own a firearm suppressor for personal use without paying a tax to the federal government, and also without you having to register them with the ATF and the federal government. Now, after Texas passed this law last year, the ATF sent the state of Texas a letter essentially threatening that they will enforce the NFA and GCA's regulations against these made in Texas suppressors, and that they will enforce it against anyone who buys or sells these items. After the ATF sent that warning letter, Texas decided to file a lawsuit on behalf of individual Texas plaintiffs against the ATF. In the lawsuit, the state of Texas argued that heavy federal taxation and regulation of firearm suppressors made in Texas for personal use in Texas does not survive Heller's recognition that the right to keep and bear arms is an individual fundamental right. The enshrinement of constitutional rights necessarily takes certain policy choices off the table. They also argued that federal regulation of firearm suppressors made in Texas for personal use in Texas cannot be justified as regulations of interstate commerce or as laws necessary and proper for carrying into execution such regulations of interstate commerce. They therefore argued originally that the court should enjoin the federal law as applied to taxing and regulating firearm suppressors made in Texas for personal use in Texas because the law violates the Second Amendment. In this section of the complaint, they also stated that the taxation and regulation of firearm suppressors made in Texas for personal use in Texas does not survive intermediate scrutiny, which is a much lower bar of scrutiny to pass. Instead, they argued for strict scrutiny review on these types of regulations. In their lawsuit, originally Texas also pointed to the fact that there are no other examples of direct federal taxes on the exercise of a constitutional right, but for whatever reason, the ATF gets away with this taxation on Second Amendment rights. In response to this lawsuit filed by the Attorney General in Texas, the DOJ/ATF responded by filing a motion to dismiss the case. A motion to dismiss is simply a legal mechanism where either side can seek to have a case completely thrown out by a court because of something like a failure to state a claim. In their motion, the DOJ argued this case should be thrown out first because the court lacks jurisdiction to hear the case because of a bill that's called, or a law that's called, the Anti-Injunction Act, and they claim that it bars these types of claims from being brought by the state of Texas. The second argument that the DOJ made in their motion to dismiss this case, or to have this case thrown out, was that Texas is barred from bringing the claim because Texas lacks standing because there is no injury to be claimed by the state itself. At the federal level, legal actions cannot be brought simply on the ground that an individual or group is displeased with a government action or law. Federal courts only have constitutional authority to resolve actual disputes, i.e. cases or controversies. One of the key elements of proving you have standing is showing that you as a plaintiff have suffered an injury in fact, meaning that the injury is of legally protected interests, which is A, concrete and particularized, and B, actual or imminent. the DOJ claims that the state of Texas cannot prove any of these as an individual. For all those reasons, the DOJ and the ATF requested that the court throw this case out altogether. In response to the ATF's motion to dismiss, the state of Texas filed a response and actually amended their original complaint. So that's one thing that a plaintiff can do, is they can amend their complaint. Now, when they amended their complaint, they then went back to the court and argued that the ATF's motion to dismiss is now moot because the complaint was amended and all these issues that the ATF brought in their motion to dismiss have now been fixed. However, in contrast, the ATF argued no, the ATF was still of the position that the amended complaint did not fix any of these issues and that the court should still just completely throw this case out. Now, after this happened, there was still some questions about what the court would actually do. A lot of this was up in the air, and there were some sentiments that maybe the court would just completely throw out this case and ending this Made in Texas suppressor issue as of right now. Of course, there's always the appeal process, but as far as the district court review of this issue, concerns were that the court would just completely dismiss this case and just throw it out. Well, the court just ruled on this issue, and they found that on April 26, 2022, defendant filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that the Anti-Injunction Act bars plaintiffs' claims and that Texas lacks standing. On May 17th, plaintiffs timely filed a response to the motion and a first amended complaint. Accordingly, the court ordered the parties to meet to discuss whether the defendant's motion was moot by filing of the amended complaint. On May 20th, the parties filed a joint status report and motion to extend the deadline to respond. The court has discretion to apply the original motion to dismiss to the amended complaint if the deficiencies and arguments from the first motion remain relevant, or to dismiss the motion as moot. Having reviewed the applicable law and the docket entries, the court concludes that the defendant's motion to dismiss should be denied as moot. Further, the court concludes that the parties' joint motion to extend deadlines should be granted in part. Accordingly, the court orders defendant to answer or otherwise respond to plaintiff's amended complaint no later than June 15th, 2022. Now, that's all the legal mumbo jumbo, but you may be asking yourself, okay, what does that all mean? Essentially, what happened is the court said that the fact that the plaintiffs amended their complaint has mooted this whole motion to dismiss that the ATF wanted. The ATF wanted to dismiss this case right here and now, but the plaintiffs amended their complaint. One of the things the ATF was saying is that that didn't moot their motion to dismiss, and they still wanted the court to throw this out, but the court says, no, we are not going to throw this case out. It is going to proceed forward. So this lawsuit by the state of Texas against the ATF and the DOJ on the Made in Texas suppressor issue is still alive. It is still proceeding forward, and we will get to see what actually happens. And the court still is taking control of this. This is only at the district court level. Eventually, it will make its way likely, in my opinion, to an appeals court level. So we will still have to wait to see. But as of right now, the court has not dismissed this. They have not sided with the DOJ, and they said, yes, there are still legitimate arguments that need to be made in this case, and it's proceeding forward. Now, one thing I would like to note in this video that I have in others is that if I were in Texas, I would not engage in this Made in Texas suppressor issue. I would not purchase or possess these Made in Texas suppressors until this case is resolved. That's because there is a high risk that the ATF will still go after people. They will still try to prosecute people, and they said as much in a letter to all FFLs, pretty much just notifying all residents that despite this Texas law, we will still go after you if you have these Made in Texas suppressors. But if anything further develops, I will let you all know. If you like this video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. Again, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So again, thank you so much for all of your support. And as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this is Built by Arms Scholars, and this nation will be maintained by Arms Scholars.